Hello everyone, it's been a very wet morning on Off the Press right here on Plus TV Africa. Welcome to the program. I am Tokunbo Taiwo. We do say Ramadan Karim to all of our Muslim viewers, and thanks for joining us. Today here in the studio with me, we've got well, to review the major headlines on the national dailies is a public affairs analyst, Gbolahan Olojede. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you want to say about this particular day in terms of what has been happening on the news headlines? What has resonated with you the most in terms of the stories and the national headlines making the rounds?
I heard something in the news about subsidy.
Okay.
Fuel subsidy. There's been this denial, back and forth. Somebody in the government will say, something about removing subsidy. Another person will come and say, no, we didn't say that, and all of that. And today, I think it was Bishmark Rewani that came out again to say this fuel subsidy must go, that Nigerians should prepare for an increase in fuel price. And I just thought, if we have an issue as important as that, what we need to do is actually to confront it, sit down, let all stakeholders sit down and discuss this matter, rather than playing games around a very critical and important issue.
Yes. Okay. So the review has started right here on Off the Press. Let's just go through the newspapers that we have today. We've got The Guardian, we've got The Punch, we've got The Nation, we have Vanguard, we've got This Day. So quite a number of newspapers. I don't know if we've got enough time to be able to look through all of them in detail, but I'm sure time will tell how many we can actually go through. Oh, we'll start with the Vanguard news. Let's see, Vanguard, I'm quite confused. We'll start with The Guardian, actually, because there's a big story on there that I want us to touch on. So The Guardian, let's look at the stories on there. The major headline is knocks for federal government as family, friends mark Leah Sharibu's birthday. We've got Foundation urges Aisha Buhari to intervene. Ezekwesili and others lament inability to rescue girl. Students sing and pray for the abducted colleague. Okay, so that's the major headline. At the bottom of the newspaper, we've got a picture of women marking her birthday. And at the bottom of the newspaper, we can see how Nigeria can earn $145 billion through legal marijuana. And that's it, really. So let's just kick right into it of The Guardian. Let's talk about Leah Sharibu. I think it was yesterday that was her birthday, where she marked her 16th birthday. Okay, so let's start with the foundation urging Aisha Buhari to intervene. Most we call on the First Lady to intervene on such a case of this nature.
I don't think it's out of place. When you have a nation like ours that has a lot of issues, so the president is right there and is bogged down with security issues, economic issues, and all of that. In the midst of it is a young lady, a 16-year-old, now 16, that has not been around for a couple of years in the hands of kidnappers. It may easily slip through the cracks. That is the reality.
You see, the reason why I asked, sorry to cut in, is that, I think there's so many other people out there, in as much as the First Lady is the First Lady, she has a lot of other responsibilities as well. I'm just like, of all of the people that we can actually ask to persuade, the president, is Aisha Buhari one of those people that we can honestly say, hands on chest, that, yeah, she's one of those people that will be likely to persuade the president to be able to do something?
We're making a judgment based on some other interactions we've seen in the public about the president and his wife. But at the end of the day, she's still a wife. And appealing to Aisha Buhari is not from a formal perspective. He has no formal role in this. It's an informal thing. She's a mother, she's a wife to the president, and she can just ensure that somehow it's on the dashboard of the president. That's our role. Nothing more than that.
More than that.
You know.
All right, thank you very much. Let's quickly move on. Ezekwesili and others lament inability to rescue Leah Sharibu. And one of the things that that was said was that they're slagging behind because she's from a poor background. Do you think that's the case?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
So you think if she was wealthier, she may not have been given some kind of preferential treatment?
I think there are a lot of efforts going on because from time to time, even the last time that the parents were speaking, they alluded to the fact that the president himself calls them. You know, but just that it goes beyond calling and comforting. What really brings the total comfort is the girl being back. So it's not. I don't think the issue is that the government is not doing anything. We just have to take whatever we're doing to that point where the girl comes back home.
You see, the reason why I keep bringing this up is that, let me clarify from your own standpoint, because evidently, and from what you've said, they are doing something. So let's not discredit them on that basis.
No. Let me also say something about that. Okay. There's a possibility that over the last few months, when people have been busy with elections, that not much was going on. It is possible. Which is why I think the marking of this 16th birthday was a very, very nice initiative to bring up the matter, to raise the awareness all over again, to get the president aware that this girl that has been there for almost 2 years is still there.
Okay, so what I was trying to raise earlier was that, I don't know, I'm trying to clarify if you feel they've spent too much time on this, or, you know, because people are advocating and saying that they've spent too much time on it. So it's not like they're not doing anything, but, you know, spending too much time. Do you think that's the case, or do you think they're spending enough, or just inappropriate?
I don't think there's anything like spending too much time. There are people in her circumstances all across the world. Some of them stay there for years. We just need to continue to engage these people until we bring Sharibu out. We can't afford to leave her there.
Yes, I think that's a good way for us to wrap up on that story. Let's move on to our next newspaper now, which is The Punch. The Punch newspaper, we've got a number of stories, but we'll start at the very top. We've got NSE OK's MTN listing at 19 Naira per share. That story is on page 27. And underneath that headline, we've got on the left-hand side, Nigerians must now appear for visa renewal, says the US. That story is on page 9. Next to that story, we have Oshibajo warns against bribing officials for licenses and passport, page 12. That's quite an interesting story. And on the right-hand side, we have minimum wage. Federal government inaugurates panel to negotiate salary adjustment. That story is on page 31. Okay, so the major headline is the 9th Assembly, 469 members to receive 4.68 billion naira welcome package. The details are available on page 2. And at the bottom of the newspaper, we have Nigerians celebrate Leah Sharibu's 16th birthday and demand her release, which is available on pages 4 and 5. There are pictures of relatives holding a banner for the press release, to press for the release of Leah Sharibu, and pictures of Leah Sharibu herself. At the bottom of the Punch newspaper, we have on the left-hand side, Ajimobi names streets after self, Alafin, Olubadan, and others, page 10. I like that you laugh.
I wonder why people will be naming streets after themselves.
After themselves. I mean, that's my
why don't you wait and let the person coming after you?
Exactly.
After
it's a bit self-absorbed, isn't it?
Yes. So narcissistic.
Okay. Let me quickly move on, because I really want to get more of your take on that. We've got in the middle at the bottom, fallen tanker explodes, burn commuters in Lagos, page 4. This is becoming very rampant, a lot, tankers exploding. But let me quickly look at this before we even talk some more on the headlines. On the bottom right-hand corner, we have FG orders prisons, fire service to employ 9,675 Nigerians. That story is on page 12. Okay, so before I discuss the major headline, I really want to capture your take on this. Ajimobi names streets after self, Alafin, Olubadan, and others, because you were saying something regarding narcissism. So, you know, tell us more about your take and what you feel.
I think it's reflective of the way people are focused on self. Leadership, governance, it's all about service. So when I hear things about someone who is a serving governor naming a street after himself, I wonder, is he about you? It could even have, it could think about several great people from that state. If there is a fresh street that you want to name, and name them. And when you leave, let the person come in after you say, oh, that guy did a wonderful job. In honor of him, let's have this street named. But not you naming street after yourself. It doesn't come across good.
It doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's touch on this one. 9th Assembly, 469 members to receive 4.68 billion welcome package. Do you think they deserve that amount? You didn't want me to ask that. Because
it's not a matter of whether they deserve it. It's already been structured. You're bringing all these people from their various states to come and put them in Abuja. There will be accommodation issue. There will be, they need to settle down and be able to do what you have hired them to do. But the big question at the end of the day, when I see figures like this, I ask again, do we really need this expensive system of government?
Especially when you take into consideration so many other things and issues that are like, we've got debts here and there.
Everywhere we have issues of 30,000 minimum wage.
Yes.
And these guys are also said to be probably the best paid legislator in the world. So those are things that this kind of figures bring to the mind. Are we getting value for this money? And how can we as Nigerians begin to demand for more value from these well-paid people out there?
All right, let's move on to our next newspaper now. Because of time, we've got The Nation, and the major headline on The Nation is June 12, Tinubu 6, urgent legislative action. The story is detailed in pages 2 and 3. There's also talk of Leah Sheribu, as there's a page, a photograph there at the top with March for Leah, members of Leah Foundation protesting at the Plateau State House of Assembly in Jos, and that was yesterday. And at the top of The Nation newspaper, we have Buhari to Saraki and others. Buhari to Saraki and others. Nation deserves better. Page 6. And underneath that, we have DHQ denounces calls for revolution, also on page 6. On the right, we have US suspends Dropbox visa application, and then a number of stories there. But I don't want to, because of time, I really want us to quickly touch on, we haven't got long left before we wrap up. So let's quickly talk about June 12, Tinubu 6 urgent legislative action. Your initial reaction?
I don't think there is any big deal about that. There has been some sort of gazette when the president brought up June 12 issues before the elections. So whatever else is required to be legislated, we should go right ahead and do the legislation. Are we moving swearing of president, for example, from May 29 to June 12, since June 12 is now the recognized Democracy Day? Those are the little nitty-gritty here and there. But the recognition of MKO itself has already happened, and that's the more important part of it. So the nitty-gritty of legislative action here and there, we should close out on it.
Okay, but I actually wanted to get your take on, when this man was alive, he wasn't given, the presidency, and then all of a sudden, now that he's dead, do you not think there's some kind of irony here?
There is. A lot of people go through that. It wasn't until Awolowo was late that one of the foremost politicians said that was the best president Nigeria never had. He could have said it also while he was alive, that this is the best thing to happen. But most likely he didn't even vote for the man while the man was alive.
There you
go.
So
that's the reality. There were a lot of politics around the recognition of MKO as the symbol of our democracy, but on a personal opinion, I think he deserved it. So the fact that it was done, whether it was done for political reasons, whether it was done 10 years after, becomes secondary as far as I'm concerned.
So let's appreciate what has been done, basically. All right, moving on to our next newspaper now. We have a Vanguard, and there's a number of stories as well. So let me quickly start at the top. Federal government can seize assets whether or not there's corruption allegation. Oshimbajo, that's on page 9. And just in the middle as well, at the top, Kano Kingmakers ask court to stop Ganduje from deposing Sanusi. That story is on page 10. Underneath that, we've got US suspends visa interview waivers in Nigeria. Page 8. And that story is also recurrent in some of the newspapers that we've talked about earlier. The major headline on the Vanguard is the state of the nation. Bakare, the Christian Association of Nigeria, Afenifere, Ohaneze, Onayekon, and others raise concern. Sheikh Abubakar Makinde back Bakare, and Bakare can relocate to another country, says President source. The full story is on page 5. And at the very bottom, we have a number of pictures regarding Leah Sharibu's 16th birthday once again. Okay, so let's quickly touch on the state of the nation. Bakare Khan, Afenifere, Ohaneze, and others raise concern. Initial reaction?
Well, it has to be a sustained commentary in the polity to keep the president on its toes that we are not loving the state of the economy, the state of security, the state of a lot of things about this country. And that's what these Nigerians and organizations are saying. Bakare has been on it for a while. In fact, literally all these guys have been saying, you and I are also concerned as far as what is going on in the nation is concerned. So we must continue to beat the drum until we see the changes that we desire. This kind of headlines are not about to go away until Nigeria begin to feel the peace and economic prosperity that we deserve.
Okay, all right, let's move on to one other story now that I see here. Condition of poor Nigerians, Almajiris upsets me, says Buhari. That story is detailed on page 9, but I wanted to get your take on that. Do you think it really upsets him, or this is politics?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's because the Almajiris that we have in millions today did not become out in millions overnight. They've been there over the years and building up. And
increasing
the president has been seeing them. They are all over in Katsina. They are all over in northern Nigeria. So this is not the first time he's seen them. Why are they still upsetting him? No, Nigerians don't really care about how upset you are. What they care about is if they really upset you, then do something. Do something. It's never too late to start to do something about those people. They are there. He understands the system. He grew up in the north, so he knows all this major things. So let's stop pretending. Let's stop all this. I'm upset. If you're upset,
do something about it.
Simple.
It's like, you know, he comes out to say all these things every so often, and he's like, he says more than he actually does.
Yeah, if you read the full story, I mean, you see things about calling on the elites to do something about education. What about the power that resides with the president to be able to do a lot of things if he really wants to do something about the Almajiris? He can do a lot of things.
Yes. Let's
start feeling him first. In fact, if you want the elite to do something, he should be the one mobilizing them. Bring them together and listen, let's do this. That's the way it works.
And then it starts from you suggesting it anyway. He should have done his own part before trying to bring in
other people.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next newspaper now. This Day newspaper, that's what we've got next. We've start with the top. Banks borrowing from CBN decreases on improved liquidity. The story is detailed there, but continues on pages 7. And underneath that, we've got NERC fines Abuja Disco 300 million naira for minors' electrocution. That story is on page 8. Okay, we've got in the middle of This Day newspaper, DHQ dissociates military from call to overthrow federal government, restates loyalty to constitution, says president. And the major headline at the bottom of that is Buhari hosts Saraki, others, and bemoans frosty relationship with the National Assembly. At the bottom, we've got Senate begins Emefiele's confirmation process, and that story is on page 7. Okay, so let's start with this. Buhari hosts Saraki and others, and bemoans frosty relationship with the National Assembly.
There's no doubt about the kind of relationship that has been between the executive and the National Assembly over the last 4 years. If I will rank it, it's probably the worst since return back to democracy. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that we will have a better relationship. Because, see, it's still one nation, irrespective of the various government, should I call them agencies, arms of government now. And the vision must be the same. But where the vision of the executive it's not supported by NAS, or NAS is not supported by the executive, there's a problem. And it is the people where two elephants fight. It is the grass that suffers. That is the situation of Nigeria under the last 4 years. So we must be able to move forward, have a good relationship, have a shared vision, and achieve more for the people of Nigeria.
Okay, and that's a wonderful way for us to wrap up right here on the program as well. We've been speaking to Gbolahan Olojede, a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so that's what we're going to wrap up right here on this edition of Off the Press. We're back. All right, sorry for that. I think we've still got sports actually, so I beg your pardon. We'll be discussing sports right after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Off the Press right here on Plus TV Africa. We're moving on to the next segment now, which is regarding sports. And joining us here in the studio is our in-house analyst, Samson Oloyede. Good to have you in the studio.
Pleasure being here.
Okay, so we've got complete sports. Let's just quickly go through the main headlines before we delve deep into one of their stories. We've got complete sports, and at the very top, we've got ahead AFCON 2019, Mikel Ndidi top Raws provisional squad. Underneath that, or just next to it, we've got Iheanacho Onuachu, Chukwueze, 20 others listed, Idowu, Utin, and Agu, and 3 others put on standby. Okay, let's come to the bottom of complete sports now. We have on the left-hand side, Madrid offer 85 million euros for I think I'm going to need your help with this name. Aubameyang. Okay. And then underneath that, we've got Pep eyes 4 targets in 200 million euros. Is that euros?
Pounds.
Pounds. Okay, 200 million pounds City spree. Okay, so out of all of these stories, let's quickly start with Rose provisional squad. What's your take on that?
Well, it's an interesting one because some names there have generated some sort of discussions on the social sphere. I think the worry for so many has to be the inclusion of Kelechi Iheanacho on that squad, considering the fact that you want to pick players based on fitness and form heading into a major tournament, and Kelechi seemingly has doesn't have both at this stage, so it's a bit worrisome that a player like that is included into a squad. It must be said that it's a professional squad, so players can still be dropped from the squad. But
on the whole, you would have wanted for him to have been excluded from the get-go.
That's it, because the players who are playing way better than he is. He's been struggling at Leicester City where he is.
So do you think there's some, sorry to cut in there, do you think there's some kind of politics going on?
Well, you can't rule that out, but
Okay.
we've had that over time in Super Eagles, call-up list and all of that. But this is a professional squad, so I won't raise much of an eyebrow until the final squad is out. If he's included,
or do you think
then
by
it's
any
a big
chance
deal.
there's some kind of potential that he's seen that we can't even see?
Now, that's the point. It's difficult to see a potential in a player that is not even playing. I mean, it's when your player is playing on a regular for his club side that you can judge him based on, his fitness, form, and what have you. But for a player who is struggling to even get seconds, it's difficult to really judge such a player. But having said that, there's also the case of John Mikel Obi, who is the captain of the team. But he's been away from national team duties for over a year. He didn't take part during the qualifiers and all of that. So there are calls as regards his commitment as well. There are questions, right, as regards his commitment, and some sort of discipline to the team itself. Because as the leader, he's meant to lead by example in terms of commitment, discipline, and what have you. So that's some sort of controversies regards the inclusion of Bob Mikel and Iheanacho. But apart from that, I think every other player in there is good to go, and let's see how they fight for their shirts till they make the final cut.
All right.
Quite impressive is that Samuel Chukwueze, who so many Nigerians have clamored for, is on that list. So I think we're good to go in that regard.
Okay, makes it all the more interesting, I think.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to other matters as well. Madrid offer 85 million euros for
Aubameyang.
Yes, Aubameyang. So, is that a lot of money, or do you think that's reasonable, or do you think that's under?
It's decent enough for Aubameyang. It's decent enough. Not taking anything away from the player himself. You get a feeling that Benzema is over 30. Madrid needs to overhaul the team, and this summer is really going to be busy. And I think that they have an eye on the arrival of Barcelona. With what Barcelona is doing. Griezmann has announced he's leaving Atletico Madrid. Barcelona seems the destination, probably 99% at this point in time. So there's Frankie de Jong from Ajax who has been signed already, and that talks that Matthew de Ligt may just go in there. So I think Real Madrid have all of these in mind, and they're just going for their targets one after the other. Eden Hazard has been reportedly signed, sealed, delivered. So if Aubameyang comes in, it's definitely a bonus for them.
Okay, just in a yes or no answer, is he worth the 85 million?
In today's market, yes.
All right, thank you very much. And that's how we wrap up right here on today's edition of Off the Press during the sports segment. We've been listening to Samson Oloyede, our in-house sports analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at precisely 8:30 when we're back with another edition of Off the Press, bringing you all of the major headlines from all of the national dailies. I'm Tokunbo Taiwo saying good morning.